Hey everybody, this is my review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker that I saw at Cinemark 17 movie theater here in Fayetteville, Georgia. And the video I made before was just that. It wasn't a live stream, it was a video. This is more of a review of the movie and a continued mention regarding this whole problem of the emasculation of Finn, which I'm not, I should say the epic emasculation of Finn as I described it. So I'm not going to let go of that. But I want to talk more about the movie itself. It's First of all, I came in wanting to like this because I'm a Star Wars fan, and I came into Star Wars thanks to my buddy Lars Frickman, who gave me a book in '75 at Bret Harte Junior High School in Oakland. We now call it Bret Harte Middle School, called Star Wars, and it had this now famous painting by Ralph McQuarrie on it of this menacing fellow who looked like he was dressed in some sort of skirt and in black and in a mask. And he was holding a kind of sword that looked like it was on fire. That's what was going through my mind at the time. And he was up against a much smaller fellow who was dressed all in white, who also had one of those fire swords, but ready to do battle. He was quite literally about half the size of the figure that was menacing him. So we now know those two figures to be Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. But at the time, I had zero idea what was going on. And Lars had said, "Have you ever heard of Owen Lars?" And this sort of questioning he threw at me went on for about half a year. And I had no idea. And it was getting a little tiresome at points. I thought, okay, Owen Lars is you, right? You're Lars, right? No, have you ever? He would just ask it again and again and again. And keep in mind, we were, let's see, 15. So just ask it again and again and again. And so then one day he said, "Remember I was asking you about Owen Lars?" He goes, "Read this." I said, "Star Wars." I wasn't making the connection. I said, "I don't get it." He goes, "Read it, you'll get it." So I did. And it was a great book. And in it, Owen Lars turned out to be the caretaker of one young Luke Skywalker. It wasn't quite clear of Luke's parentage, but he was definitely the swashbuckler. And so all of us sort of bonded together around Star Wars. We'd already started our Star Trek club. So we were sort of on our way. Anyway, uh, I say all that because, well, that's how I got involved in the Star Wars. And also, unfortunately, my friend died last year. And we were supposed to see Star Wars, the episode 8, what's called The Last Jedi. We were supposed to see that together, but got my wires crossed. And then this time, Bill Boyd, who's part of our friendship trifecta, and I are supposed to see it with his daughter and son and wife back in Oakland whenever I get back there, because we all agreed that Christmas is a week from today, and it's going to be hard to just get together and all that. So there we go. But I said I'm going to go and see it anyway and let you all know what I think, because I'm going to see it again, which I'm still going to do because I want to see it with Bill. But having said all that, I will say this. Because of the history that I gave you and my personal connection to it, I really was predisposed to like episode 9. But in part because of the Finn issue, which I'll get to later, which I referred to before, but I'm going to assume you didn't see it, and these other analysis, I came away with what I would say would be a 7 rating, which for me is low. I'm a high grader, okay? Normally I'd give it a 9 or something, but I give it just a 7. And the reason is that Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was really a lot of ensemble scenes assembled together in a Frankensteinian way. Really, it was just pieced together, quite literally, it's pieced together, wherein it said, okay, we've got to close this whole issue with Rey's parents, right? And then we have to turn around and we have to deal with the whole issue of Senator Palpatine and who he really is, right? And his connection. So it turns out that Senator Palpatine is actually the great grandfather of Rey. And I'm still not quite getting Ben Kenobi's, not Ben Kenobi, but Ben Kenobi is, but I'm not quite getting Kylo Ren, because Kylo Ren winds up, they say, being kind of connected with Rey, and that together they have supposedly more power than the Emperor. But Rey is the Emperor's great granddaughter. Got it? But Kylo Ren went from being the guy who was supposed to be the next Darth Vader to this guy who winds up saving her, Rey, and then they get kissed passionately. And I'm thinking, where did that come from? But I know there are people in the media who wanted that, and on social media. And I'm thinking, am I actually seeing writ large what these so-and-sos wanted on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit? I thought, you got to be kidding me. Whatever happened to making a movie that was true to itself rather than this digital adjustment machine that reflected the tweets of the day? And that's what it looked like. So the entire, 3-hour experience was me trying to find something to like and being annoyed. But the biggest, and then having hope for Finn, because you have to understand, as a black guy, I spent my life in a world where areas that I choose to go into, professions, entertainment, things that I was entertained by, were enjoyed by mostly white folks. There was never anything that told me I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't be in a certain area because I look the way that I do. And I say that because now that I'm a 57, Zenny 62, get it? I hear younger black folks saying that, if I don't see me, then it's not something I want to be. Okay? I've never thought that. That was not in my head. That's foreign to me. But because of that look at life and where it's taken me, what I realize as I've gotten older is there are these little ways that society tries to segregate you as someone black, to white society, and then shapes how you're seen within their depiction of a something. And that comes loudly through in Rise of Skywalker. And folks, that should not be. Okay? So you should have gotten a love arc. Like, for example, Han Solo and Princess Leia had an arc. Started out, he was the swashbuckling, aggressive hauler, right? She was the skeptical princess that did everything. So fast forward to episode 9, it's episodes 7, 8, 9. I thought Finn was going to be the modern day variant of the character played Han Solo by Harrison Ford. But instead, what we got a guy who went from being this man, who figured out that he's not a stormtrooper anymore, but he really likes this girl, okay? And he's, all of a sudden, he's, not so much a bad pilot. He's not on the par of others, but he's a doer. He's a leader, right? We went from that to this emasculation of him. We went from episode 7, where it looked clearly like he was going to go after and get his girl and eventually marry her, or maybe have this little dance, kind of like the dance that Han Solo had with Princess Leia, right? Like, I love you, but I really don't love you, but I'm not sure. They didn't do any of that. They just plain cut him off, balls wise. That's it. You know, hey, forget it. Okay, we're not going there. And that came as a direct result of this constant idea that, okay, because he's black, and wasn't spoken, but because he's black, he can't possibly have a relationship with Rey because she's white. That's what it was put out. And you have to understand something. 1967, in 1967, Captain Kirk, played by William Shatner, kissed Lieutenant Uhura, played by Nichelle Nichols. Kirk white, Uhura black. So I thought all that stuff was a thing of the past. And I thought we were over that. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that. But then an epic like Star Wars, with billions of dollars behind it, comes along. And it's the sad reminder that in 43 years of Star Wars, we've never had one interracial kiss. But it was to pander to an audience that somebody back there perceived as racist, or maybe they themselves were racist. Perhaps J.J. Abrams, since he was co-writer. Okay? So, and then within that, let's take that and put it over here for a minute. The first 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Okay? First 5 to 10 minutes of it was, was, hey, hey, we're rushing from here to there trying to pick all this up, okay? Now, my colleague here, Jessica Dwyer, disagrees with me, but she goes, I didn't get it from that. I saw Finn complete his arc. Sure, he loved Rey, but he became the hero he was supposed to be and a Force user to boot. I don't see that as emasculating him. You did, in fact, get a racial kiss between him and Rose. No, but she knows what I'm talking about. But thanks to people pissing all over her character, that pushed to the background. If you want to get technically, treated Rose the same way Rey treated him, not wanting to be more of a friend. I disagree. See, and I'm actually and I'm writing on live now, and completely disagree. Disagree, my friend. They emasculated him, Finn, with respect to the logical, romantic arc with Rey. And many agree with me, which is a nice surprise. I'll say surprise. Because look, it shouldn't be like, you know, she's saying that you saw interracial kiss between him and Rose. But look, they didn't want a black, look, the writers can write this any kind of way they want to. So I'm thinking, why introduce Rose, right? Why shift that? Why not simply take on, I'm writing this to her too. I mean, as I say, why not take on Finn as the modern Han Solo to Rey as Princess Princess Leia, and they are a couple. That's more in line with Star Wars than what we got. What we got was pure emasculation of black men. Of black men, and brothers agree with me, which is where it starts, which is where it starts. It's our version of Me Too, which is, well, yeah, which is where it starts. It's our story. It's our story. And I say this because there's a lot of, all right, it's our story. And that's central to me. That problem is really central to me because I believe that if they'd stuck to that basic canon, that idea that Ren and Faye would be together, they would have tied the whole movie together in a nice way. Okay. Instead, it quite literally runs all over itself. And it comes up with scenes that don't make sense. Like, for example, she says that he was his own Force actor, right? But, okay, so we're supposed to basically suddenly divorce ourselves from the idea that if he's using the Force and to find where Rey is, in a normal Star Wars story arc, he would go find her and he would help her, okay? And she would realize this and there would be some sort of resolution of that revelation. This is the first time in Star Wars history we haven't gotten that. He's just, okay, he has the Force. But what does that mean? What does that spell for a sequel? What does that spell for the future? Is this really the end? And is there a director's cut somewhere out there where these digital pieces are in some computer waste bin waiting to be filled back into their rightful place? I hope so. Because if that's the case, I can't wait for the director's cut. Okay? I can't. But, and what we did have to make up for the lack of, men, black dudes, right, is we had Lando Calrissian, played by expertly Billy D. Williams, filling in that role, even saying to the girl afterward, she says, I don't know my background. He goes, well, let's go find it, I don't know what planet I'm, well, let's go find it. Let's go explore. That's a dude. But it had to be an 80-something-year-old brother, right? As opposed to dude in his 20s who would normally be, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do this and yada, yada. I rule the world and everything else. And, no. I'm sorry. I am, and again, I'm really happy that I'm not the only brother that's talking about this. I might be the only one in this context, but those of you who are watching this actually right now, the feedback is good. And Riot Abbott, and I got feedback from other people as well. Riot Abbott says, I read a story that they're moving everything to Henderson. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, he says, The Mandalorian. Okay, fine. Is LeVar Burton needing... I don't know what that is. Okay, Lando Calrissian through the Millennium Falcon. Yeah, he's done that before. So, okay, anyway. I've had... Let's see. If I go to that one or if I go to my first video on that, yeah. And then they took Rey... They took Rose, right? And it's like they actually diminish Rose's role. And if it is the case like some other people have said, and that Rose was the focus of internet backlash, it looks like they really responded to it and showed less of her, and they could have steered her. I mean, I don't know why Rose is there to begin with, okay? It's like one writer said, well, gee, we really don't want to have Finn with this white girl, so we need to put him with an Asian girl. Because somebody back there is complaining. That's really what it looks like. So they stuck Rose in there And they gave her the storyline, then somebody else says, oh, they're complaining about that. And so they shifted. That's really what this looks like, folks. So the digger you deep into this, the muckier it gets and the ickier it feels. There's no other way to put it. And I'm sorry, those of you in our society who are not black should fight for black men, period. End of story. For black guys saying, hey, you know what? This is what I'm perceiving. Listen to them. It will be painful. It will definitely be painful, you know? But, so, right, I've ever chasing Amy. No, I haven't. But listen, and you may not like what you hear, but think of it this way: you want us to hear you. And this is the thing that bothers me about the conversation today. Women want men to hear them, particularly including black men. But when it comes to, let me be more pointed, white women complaining about how society addresses white women with respect to power issues, sex issues, everything else, okay? Women want to be heard, but if you dig deeper, black men and white women have similar issues that they can actually join forces on. But you don't find white women coming to black men's assistance or backing. I'm just being real with you. Often. Sometimes you do. Like I have a friend, I'm not going to name her for this, but I just saw her when I came back to Oakland, who has a white, completely has a sense, you're far more sensitive to racism than mine, okay? I learned a lot from just talking with her. And she's a lawyer, okay? But she opens my eyes on a regular basis, and I'm blessed to know her because she gets how racist society is and the messages that are put out there that are consistently against us, it seems, and how there's very little done about it. I mean, she rails about a lot of stuff, and she's great. And she's doing well as an attorney. So I'm blessed to know people who are white, who get it, in many cases, better than I do. Okay? And they're on a par with my mom. So I'm just letting you all know, folks, there are people out there who are, I don't like to use the term woke, but sensible. It's not a matter of being woke. It's a matter of just being sensible. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And so it's because they were quite literally responding to social media and the racist ills that are out there today that we get this mess of a movie. We really do. Finn did not have an arc. Finn's arc was incomplete. It was like out there. And the final scene should have been Finn kissing Rey. Finn didn't kiss anybody. Okay? And again, I remind you, no one ever in Star Wars has never had, ever, I'm going to write this to Jessica too, actually. Also, Star Wars has never had a black / white kiss on the mouth in all of my 43 years with Star Wars, going back to the book version in 1975. Boom, that's what I'm writing here, okay? Never. This is big issues with me. These are huge issues with me. Okay? And I just don't, all right? I just don't. Okay? And to me, all right, and Derek says Finn should have been a Jedi. He should have been. And see, that's where I thought they were headed. It's like, hey, you know, because remember there's one scene where he says, I have to something, really early on, he says, there's something I have to tell you. And he never gets to it. So there's this whole point that's just closed. And I want to lead you some of the comments that I got from my first video on this. Jermaine Kendall says this could be the whole issue regarding the emasculation of Finn could clearly be seen since episode 8. All right. And then I get, let's see here. The real story we all wanted was Finn to be a descendant of Mace Windu so they could bring back Jackson for some old cutscenes. And Excel Generation says the entire new trilogy messed up the lore completely. Lucas should have been in charge. And Jay Black says it upsets me that Finn, the black man, made us pretty much a pointless character that wants away the white girl, but it's Hollywood's the emasculation of black man is common. Okay, and so and Jay makes a great point. You know, it's like, hey, we didn't. I mean, Rey and Finn should have been together because Finn saw this girl. He's been a stormtrooper all his life. He's been sheltered. He likes her. You know, it's the same. We shouldn't have to explain this. These are things that bring men and women together. Okay? To have to explain this today tells me that society, in a way, is going nuts. Purely nuts. So, at any rate, I think somebody made some other comments on the other one. Let me get to these. And, oh, Doug mostly says Finn should have been a Jedi, as I talked about. Ryan Abbott says Samuel L. Jackson did a great voiceover. Joseph Madura says Finn kept saying I have a feeling. Yeah. Hey, I saw how you doing, Joseph. And Rob Iman says Rob, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna until you make comments that are relevant to what we're talking about, I'm gonna put you in a timeout because you've done that before, and if you do it again, I'm gonna just outright ban you. Okay, so Rob Iman says I responded right up. Yeah, Rob, I don't know what Ryan is getting after. All right, so I don't know what all that's about. Whatever. If let me see here. View deleted message. Well, Rob Iman says, I love watching LeVar Burton playing Pyramid. Well, okay, fine. But I'm talking about the movie. And Ryan Abbott's trying to basically screw up my conversation. I don't want that. So if I can't get him back online for tonight, he would simply have to go. Because I'm really stuck on making a point here. I'm deadly serious about it. All right, which means I'm going to enact the rules to make sure that we stay on point. Because I want this fleshed out. I'm tired of people being afraid to talk about it. Period. We've got to, okay, this has to be completely put out there. And if people have an issue that's racist, they should say that. They have an issue regarding, black men and how they're depicted in movies. Where they have an issue seeing someone black who's male with a white woman, they should say that. They should say that, because that's where we've come to. All right, I have no problem pointing that out. So I'm picking a fight here, because again, Finn was a central character here, and they brought in Poe, and it was like, oh, Finn and Poe are supposed to be together. Why? Because you don't want to see Finn with a white girl. So what I'm getting at, and what I'm punching at, is this, figuratively speaking, is this idea, rather than say they don't want Finn with a white woman, what they'll do is say, okay, well, how about the man? Whereas if Finn had been white, all right, then would have been the normal thing of, oh, they're going to have this romance and everything else. See what I'm getting at? And they tried to put that on Kylo Ren. I'm thinking, stop doing that. Please, just stop doing it. That is racist. And thank God for an emerging black media that takes issues with these messages in society and says, that's not what I want. And that's what I'm saying. That's not what I want. Because you have to remember something. We all like to see ourselves in something, even though I grew up not seeing myself in a lot of movies. But it's refreshing to see, Finn being black. So as a result, you would like for that character to do a little bit of what you would do, particularly if Finn in episode 7 is designed to look like um, is designed to look like Harrison Ford. Rob Iman says Disney has a tendency to be stuck in the 50s. But here's the thing, though. Is it Disney? Because the problem has existed long before Disney bought Star Wars from George Lucas. I remember when Star Wars first came out in 1977 in movie form. This is after the book. And George Lucas received a heap of criticism for having no black folks in it. You had to strain to find somebody that looked black. Now, to someone who was a fan of Star Wars and has been, that was particularly hard for me to defend. I had to quite literally just shut up and listen to people who would say, well, how can you like that? Because there's no one black in it. So this has been a not so comfortable road for me being a fan through society, okay? Because where I came from, Star Trek had plenty of people who looked like me in it from jump. From jump. And so that's why I tell people that one major problem in society today is we went from a Star Wars society where we talked about the application of technology to improve our condition, and we had an optimistic view of the human race, and it was human-centered, based on the United States of America, move forward to the United Federation of Planets, right? To Star Wars, which has zero connection to anything in our real world. We're just humanoid, nothing, okay? As Rob Iman just wrote, Gene Roddenberry was way ahead of his time. I'm a Star Trek guy. Star Trek people insist on diversity. There's even something called the edict. It's called infinite diversity, infinite combinations. It's a medallion that you can buy today online. Diversity is a key part of the Star Trek canon. Diversity is a key part of the Star Trek universe in all its forms. So it's hard to stomach some of the stuff that Star Trek has to deal with as a Trekker from the Star Wars people. Okay? All right? And that's why Finn and Rey coming along was so great. If you go to Comic-Con, you see Finn and Rey. Black guy, white girl, you know, and everyone was like, oh, this is great. Can we take pictures of you? It was moving society forward positively. That was the idea. But again, if you go back to the story, imagine if Finn and Rey were together the way I was talking about, the whole movie would be better. Everybody would fall in line because you're talking about two main characters. Okay? Two main characters. Special effects, love them. Cross-cut scenes, I could have done without it. It's like JJ was really trying to cram a lot in there. And also, the one thing that I had a problem with is, and so the one thing that I have a problem with is how there are certain scenes that were just too quick. Like, for example, the boardroom scene where Dom Hell's character ultimately gets thrown up against the wall, and then he decides, I don't want Kylo Ren to be successful, right? And that scene, which was kind of a play on the original Darth Vader scene, was too short. The original scene featuring Darth Vader and General Tarkin was a thing of beauty, where the general's like, oh, this is the ultimate power of the universe. You know, that was cool, all right? This scene that I'm talking about did not match that at all. It was too rushed. It was supposed to make Kylo Ren look like Darth Vader, and it made Kylo Ren look like a guy pretending to be Darth Vader. Joseph Mamadura says, in cinema, white man could have anything he wants, i.e. a black woman. It's the same for the Latinos as well. If you notice, they always have Latin women succumbing to the charms of the white man. Yeah, absolutely. And Rob Iman says, now I'm going to refrain from any more Star Wars opinions until I see the movie myself. Yeah, see it yourself. Ryan Abbott says, best Star Trek series in my opinion, and the LeVar Burton is a major black character in it with a visor. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. I mean, Star Trek provides a great counterpoint to Star Wars, and then in Star Trek you had true diversity. You had diversity of thought, diversity of people, diversity of, you know, like again, I point back to Star Trek had television's first interracial kiss, and it never stopped there. Okay, so Joseph says you're hitting some of the points I wanted to focus on my review. Do you still want me to go through it? Yeah, no, absolutely, because you have your idea, Jessica has hers. You know, and I think Jessica exchanging with me is probably a learning experience for her because I don't get that she's had anyone black who was just this straight out um, pointed about how black men were treated. I could be wrong, but and her husband's black, okay, but I don't know him, and I haven't. But my point is that, for example, like Hillary, my friend, um, is again much more, if you would say, militant. All right, so Jessica and I have this sort of dance where it's like she's like, oh yeah, they put out this same-sex couple and they did this, but it was in the context of her talking about Star Wars. She mentions Finn and Poe, and I'm thinking, why are you doing that? Why Finn and Poe, not Finn and Rey, right? So, and I would never really quite get that answer, and that's okay. She's my friend. But well, and on the other hand, I keep thinking also she's my friend. I'd love to have the answer, but it's great to find out why a person thinks that way, as opposed to a way that I believe is a champion to the way that I live. Okay, and so that's what I'm getting at. And Rabbi says Star Trek should add some Latino characters. Um, and I'm going to talk about the way that I live. I mean, myself and others who dated interracially since we were teens, and that's been our standard, and not for any other reason than in my personal case. When you like Star Trek and you're interested in math and science and you're young in the 60s and grew up in South Chicago as I did, you got beaten up by your folks. Okay. So my folks, the folks that I got along best with, were white. They were nerds. They were what we call today nerds. Although back then in the late 60s, I was called Poindexter. Okay. So I have a deep-seated reason, as we all have a deep-seated reason for how we turn out, for why I have this point of view. And that shape has come to play a large role in how I express my worldview, right? So we all have that walk, and it's a good idea to talk about it rather than pretend like it's not there, because we all grow and learn and get something from each other that we didn't have before in terms of points of view. And a movie like Star Wars, the way it's done, brings that out, because I'm not the only one talking about this in different ways. Other people are just basically saying, without the race part of it, they're saying, hey, this is sort of a mosh of points that were brought up on social media and then put into a movie. And so it feels like, again, it feels like it was stitched together in a Frankensteinian way. And so Donut says nerds are taking over. Okay. And Rob Ivan says Star Trek should add some Latino characters. Actually, Rob, Star Trek has had quite a few. Okay. I mean, quite a few. Quite a few. Commodore Mendez. I mean, I can go. There's a huge list. Huge list. Konduni and Singh were played by Ricardo Montalban. And no, there are just so many characters that were either Latino actors or Latino actors that played a character that had a Latino surname. It's not funny. Or sometimes you had white characters that played that had a Latino surname. For example, A friend of mine who passed away was the late um, Malachi Throne, who I met at WonderCon, and I always wanted to meet this guy for basic reason that when I was coming up in the '60s, I would watch Man from Uncle and Mission Impossible, and if you watched these shows on a religious basis, if it was appointment television, you got used to seeing this guy with his name Maca. See how see now I've forgotten how to spell his name exactly. So now I got to go and type it so I can um, do it because um, and the reason is that it leads to how we met and how things went from there, basically. All right, because I was dying to meet this guy, Malachi, Malachi Throne. Now, see, I had always seen this man's face. This is he, okay, right here. All right, I had always seen this man's face. For some reason, that's not zooming in like I want it to. But let me click on this. Yeah, I'd always seen his face, it's Malachi Throne, particularly here, and I got used to seeing him as a character actor, right? So when I finally met him, uh, and uh, and had the opportunity to interview him, all right, um, and he's got a number of videos um, that were up that I just tapped the type Zinni 62 here, right there, but there. Um, that's Malachi Throne from Star Trek. This is 2010 at WonderCon. That's when we first met. Then Celeste Yarnell, another Star Trek veteran, introduced us here. Okay, Celeste there and introduced us, and this was at WonderCon. That was the very next year. This was April 5th. If you can see the April 5th of 2000. I don't know why that's not zooming in properly, folks, but at any rate, it was April 5th, 2011 there, okay? So, and that's him in the background, right? So I say all that to say this because um, these were people that he played Commodore Jose Mendez. Commodore Mendez, J.I. Remember Lieutenant Uhura giving the word to Captain Kirk from the Telosians in the cage, and he says, he's listening to Uhura, Kirk is, and Kirk says, Commodore Mendez, J.I. The man who played Commodore Mendez was Malachi Throne. So again, my point is that Star Trek is replete with many examples of Latino representation. Okay, and that's not to say that Star Trek does not have many examples of African American, African French, African American primarily representation. The most famous of them all, and this is really a credit to Star Trek, was Wilbur Marshall, who played Dr. Richard Daystrom, the creator of the M5 Multitronic computer and the technology around which Starfleet computers were what we now call artificial intelligence were powered by. He was black. This is in the 60s, okay? So we have, in a sense, gone backward from that ideal. As opposed to forward. It shouldn't be something where each generation has to consistently say, hey, you should do this. Now, we have a lot of us producing our own material where that doesn't have to be. But it was a pure joy to watch Star Trek because you didn't get stereotypical ideas on Star Trek. If you watch Star Trek religiously, you came up with the idea that somebody looked like me could be the person that created the technology around which Star Trek computers operated. And again, what we now call artificial intelligence. Or you got the idea that eventually there are women who were in engineering, who were in engineering. Star Trek did have some references that were sexist. Let's be honest about it. But it was also aware of it, and because of the drive to diversity, there were consistently stories in subsequent Star Trek episodes as we advanced through time that reflected Star Trek's desire to meet with its ultimate charge of diversity. And that's the greatest thing about Star Trek. Ultimately, you know what it got us? It got us Voyager, one of the best science fiction television programs on the planet. Captain Janeway, right? So Star Trek has this built-in fix mechanism that Star Wars lacks. That's not Star Wars' charge, just because it's not based on us, it's based on something else. But that doesn't mean that we can't demand better. And that's all I'm saying. You know, that's all I'm saying. And Ryan Abbott says Next Generation is the best. Next Generation was the ultimate advance of Star Trek with respect to diversity. Okay? It really was. And yeah, and I can't wait to see what happens with Picard. So you all are getting what I'm saying. And I'm not discouraging anyone from seeing Star Wars. See it. And I'm sure I'll see it again. But because I'm a fan of the series, but I will not stop expressing my displeasure over how the Finn's character was treated. I tweeted John Boyega, and I tweeted, Robert Iger, Disney chairman, who actually met when I was covering the NFL owners meeting in Houston, the one where Stan Kroenke wound up getting the permission to move his Rams from St. Louis to LA. All right. So, all right, folks, live long and prosper. And I'll see everybody later. Live stream tomorrow night. By the way, Josh Jacobs is said to be a lock for the NFL Rookie of the Year. All right. See you later.